This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. Episode 202 from the Subway to Shea studios in my office. If you haven't done so already, if you like the content, make sure you like this video. At the end, make sure you are subscribing to the Subway to Shea podcast on YouTube, as well as Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you like to listen to it instead. But if you want to be a part of the chat, you know where you're at, and that's here on YouTube. Even on X, you can throw in some chat as well. I'll make sure to get to as many comments as possible. And if you're following along with Subway to Shea, check us out on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea, as well as you can follow me personally at Ant Rivera 86 on X. Let's get right into the show today. And shout out, we got 23 people in the room to start off the bat. Carlos Ramos in the room, Rosie K, Duran Rivera, Nelson Cruz. Shout out to all of you guys. And already off the bat, my voice is a little off, and that's not good. But I'm going to take a sip of water. Going to clear my throat a little bit. And here we go with the Subway to Shea podcast today. It's a solo show. Well, not really totally solo, but I have you guys in the chat to help me get through the show. And we are going to start off with, Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso, the heroics over the past week or so. And they have both been pretty clutch during this stretch. And let's start off with Francisco Lindor, because Lindor broke his right pinky toe, on Wednesday in a game against the Los Angeles Dodgers, and he ends up not going on the IL, and he was day-to-day. And, Mookie Betts played through this injury during the Mets-Dodgers series. Lindor playing after getting hit in the first inning of that game tells you a lot. He played the whole game. He didn't come out. He was a trooper throughout the whole entire series, and only was out that final game, and as well as Friday night. Well, most of Friday night, because we'll get to that shortly. But playing through this injury for Francisco Lindor, it's nothing that we're not used to for him, right? I mean, he played through the back injury last season, and he's playing through this injury right now. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like Francisco Lindor plays better after suffering these injuries. Now, I don't want him to get hurt, but he takes it to another level, just shows you the professional that he is, just shows you the leadership that he carries on this team. And I think even Pete Alonso mentioned it in the post-game presser on Friday night of what Francisco Lindor means not only to him, but to the entire team. And that's why he's pretty much the captain of this team right now. I like to call him El Capitan. David writes the captain. I like to call him El Capitan. And he has been everything you can expect and then some. Very much a very important part of this team. You look back on Friday night, comes in to pinch hit in the ninth inning and gets the big 2-run double to give the Mets the lead against the Rockies and eventually the win there. And that had to pump the team up. I know it pumped all of us fans up. Great to see him come through there in the clutch yet again in a big game, in a big moment. The Mets kind of really needed that game on Friday. The offense had been pretty lackluster. And they've been, with runners in scoring position, and he comes in, he gets the big hit in the ninth inning. Pete Alonso gave the Mets the lead earlier on in the game, because that's what he does. And those two have been the dynamic duo pretty much for the last couple of years, ever since Lindor came here. And I know we're going to talk about Soto making it a trio, but right now it's been Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso. Soto's been doing his stuff, stealing bases, getting walks. The power hasn't quite been there yet. Not as many hits, not hitting with runners in scoring position, but that'll come. The guy has the big resume. All right. I keep talking about this, and he struggled in his first year in San Diego. This is no shock to me, and it shouldn't be a shock to anyone else. It stinks because he's making now $800 million, but I have no doubt that Juan Soto will be back in rare form. And you go to Saturday's game, and Francisco Lindor starts Saturday's game, gets 3 hits. On top of that, gets 2 stolen bases. I mean, the guy is crazy good at what he does. Reading the pitcher, knowing when to steal on him, even with the toe, it made it look easy. And he's still in pain. But he just comes through when you need him the most. And that's pretty huge for the Mets to have Francisco Lindor playing at the pace that he has been. Very excited to continue to see what he has to offer to this team as the season goes on. And I think there was a comment in here, Armand saying, should Lindor not play today, even with the day off tomorrow, so he can rest that broken toe and be ready for the Nats series starting Tuesday? I don't know, right? Like I said to rest him the entire series against Colorado, and he wants to play. So he's going to probably play today. I wouldn't be shocked. But if they want to give him the day off, you got multiple options, right? Luis Angel Acuna can play shortstop. Ronnie Mauricio, we saw the other night, can play shortstop. So they have options. I guess in a pinch, if you needed Brett Beatty to play shortstop, he's been taking rips there too. But with Acuna being there, with Ronnie Mauricio and the big game that he had the other night, you have options. And where, as in the past, you really didn't have these options if Francisco Lindor got hurt. I think also Jared Young, if I'm correct, Jared Young, I think, can play probably shortstop as well. He's a utility guy. But with this depth that the Mets have right now, with Ronnie Mauricio up here and Luis Angel Acuna, if you want to give him a day off, you probably can. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Lindor get the day off today. Maybe he comes in a pinch hit opportunity. The Mets have off tomorrow and the reset, like Armand says, and get ready to go when the Mets come back home to Queens to face the Nationals. Rosie K in the chat saying, I have to say that the loss to LA was brutal. Makes me worry about their ability to hang with teams like that. They also beat them in the series 4-3. They should have gone 7-0, and we're going to get into that. So I'm actually going to leave this comment for a little bit later, Rosie K. I'm going to come back to that. But the Mets, Francisco Lindor has been doing their part. As Rosie K say, Lindor has become the leader everyone imagined he could be. It's his team. Marcos Figueroa is saying Conor McGregor pulled out of a fight because of a broken toe. Lindor is tougher than Conor. Nelson Cruz saying the minors are loaded too. Every time you look up, another stud emerges. And, you've wanted the Mets to build teams like this, right? The Dodgers have had this. The Yankees have had this, where if someone gets hurt, they are able to plug someone in from the minors and it'd be kind of seamless, right? They can get through without a hitch, without a worry. And when you have Luis Angel Acuna, who plays shortstop and good defense, you got Ronnie Mauricio, who, I don't know if you saw his arm Saturday night from third base. Holy crap. Man, he can throw. So look, it's great to have depth when it comes to the infield. It's great to have depth when it comes to pitching, and the Mets have that. And that's what's going to get them through this season and hopefully into a deep run into October. I got to shout out Steven Steele checking in from Thailand. I hope you're enjoying that trip, my friend. Thank you for being a part of the show and watching and tuning in and being a part of the chat. I really appreciate it. And like I said, you want to be a part of the chat, it's on here on YouTube as well as on X. 51 people in the room right now. Appreciate every single one of you. I want to get to the stats here for Francisco Lindor. Last 15 games, batting .317, 5 homers, 10 RBIs, 7 walks, and 6 stolen bases. That's what you get from your leadoff guy. That's what you get from one of your best players. Could be the best player on the team. But right now, that's kind of reserved for Pete Alonso. Look at his last 15 games, batting .310, 6 homers, 20 RBIs, 5 walks. Outside of a short slump he had, Pete has pretty much carried this offense. With runners in scoring position, which is probably the most important stat here, because this entire team has struggled with runners in scoring position. He's batting .352. He's got 7 homers, 41 RBIs, and 14 walks. He's not striking out as much, which is great because Pete Alonso, we've known in the past, has been known to swing at that slider out and away. And then on top of that, if you want to go dive deeper into these stats here, when it comes to Pete Alonso with runners in scoring position, I look at him with 2 outs. Now with 2 outs, he's batting .304, 6 homers, 21 RBIs, and 8 walks. So he's having some quality at-bats, and he pretty much owns hitting in LA. Shout out to Armand in the chat for correcting me on Jared Young here. He can't play shortstop. I thought he could. He could play first, left field, right field. 16 games, 12 started at first, 2 in left field, and 1 game each in right field. And probably why he's been DHing most of the time. He's taking over for Jesse Winker as the DH. So appreciate that, Armand. He guys per Baseball Reference. Appreciate that. Carlos Ramos in the chat saying Pete is now taking those outside pitches and waiting for the one he can drive. Oppo, this is 2022 Pete. Exactly. Right? And that's the Pete we've been wanting, right? Opposite field Pete has been huge. We know he can nuke one into left field and center field. But the ability for him to turn on a pitch and send it to right field, whether it's a double, whether it's a home run, extra base hit, is very important, especially when this team struggles with scoring runs. So Pete has been on his game the entire season. I assume he'll opt out of his contract and go into free agency. But we are getting the best right now of Pete Alonso. Honestly, Carlos, this might be better than 2022 Pete. It might be. It might end up being. I know that past April was, I think, pretty much his best month in the league. And I think he leads the majors now in RBIs. If not, it's definitely the National League. He's been stellar for this team. He wants to be here. Francisco Lindor wants to be here. You always see him, even when the games are over. This is, you look at some of the outside stuff. When you see Lindor in the press conferences, and when you see him walk into Citi Field, always got a Mets chain on or a Mets hat, always representing. We know Pete always wanted to be a Met. Those are the guys that you want on this team. Those are the guys you want to be a part of this roster. As Carlos says in the chat, leads in doubles. Huge for Pete. Kind of Mike Piazza-esque. I don't like to compare, but when I saw 2022 Pete, it reminded me of Mike Piazza. And when you hit opposite field, when you can have that power that Pete has to opposite field, reminds me of Mike Piazza. Did the same thing. Now, if you haven't done so already, and I think G Money Stacks had mentioned it in the comments, or someone had mentioned it of the comments. Here we go. Yes. Speaking of which, do you know what is the website to vote for the New York Mets players in the All-Star break? You just go to Mets.com. I think they have the banner up there where you can vote for who you want. And definitely Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor should be All-Stars. Alonso and Lindor, both four-time All-Stars. And it's a crazy to me, and I'm pretty sure all of you, that Francisco Lindor has not been an All-Star with the New York Mets. Not last season, not 2022. It's crazy. But he's got to get the All-Star bid nod starting this season. No excuses. No excuses for him not to be in the All-Star game along with Pete. And there may be some other Mets. Kodai Senga probably should get a nod to the All-Star game. Heck, the whole Mets pitching starting staff probably should be in there. Look at what Clay Holmes has done. Griffin Canning. David Peterson. Edwin Diaz. I mean, the list goes on. You could throw them all in there. I love the chat because they always come with me with the stats when I can't get to them. I'm working off of one screen. I don't have the multiple screen option here on my computer. So I got to work off the one screen and the notes that I have. But G-Money Stacks, 57 RBIs for Pete Alonso, plus he's close to breaking the home run records for David Wright and Darryl Strawberry. I think he is 2 away from Wright to tie. And then maybe about 13 away from Darryl Strawberry and breaking that record. And after that, he'll be an all-time Met no matter what happens and where he goes, if he stays or if he goes. Pete Alonso will always be etched in history as the greatest home run hitter in Mets history. Nelson Cruz saying Pete also leads the league in a fadeaway slides at home. I don't know if you guys saw that on the, I'm pretty sure he did, on the Francisco Lindor pinch hit 2-run double on Friday night against Colorado. That slide from Pete Alonso kind of reminded me of Javi Baez type sliding. And you got to give credit to Pete Alonso for getting around the tag, but also Juan Soto. If you see in the background, Juan Soto is motioning him to move to his left. A good job all around from Francisco Lindor getting the hit, Pete Alonso hustling and the slide, as well as Juan Soto directing traffic there. So solid all around from everybody and what they did. Jabroni Baseball, loving the podcast, man. Keep it up as always. LFGM, appreciate you for being a part of this chat today. Shout out to you and everyone else that is in here. As we continue, and you know, correct, as Marcos Figueroa said, Lindor's slow starts have prevented the All-Star nods. That's not the case this year. He should definitely be an All-Star. I think there was one year, I don't know if it was 2022, where Perdomo made it over him. And Lindor's stats were better, but that the starts is what kind of did Lindor in, unfortunately. But I think Met fans, they're voting in droves. Get out there, make sure you vote for this team, and you have to get out there and get these guys in the All-Star game. You just do. G Money Stack saying that was a cool play of him avoiding the tag. And, a lot of credit, like I said, not only to Pete, but for Juan Soto to get him around there. And that's going to be the next guy that we get into. The Juan Soto shuffle returns. Soto shuffle is back. We could stop talking about whether he wants to be here or not. We could stop talking about who made him sign here, why he signed here. I mean, it's freaking June already. Enough. I know that there's some people who have more of a standing than I do on the air, on radio, that will continue to talk about this ad nauseum. Let's talk about the guy on the field now. Soto seems happy to me. He's adjusting well. Gets a well with his teams. I know you saw that water bottle game that they were doing in LA, and you can tell that it has frustrated Yankee commentators, Yankee announcers, that he's doing fine now. The Soto shuffle's back. And it sucks that we have to justify his behaviors and not focus on his play, which kind of has turned up over the last 7 games. We're seeing more hits. We're seeing the home runs. He's going to get his walks. He's going to get it done. But I'm just over the discourse, and I'm pretty sure you are as well, on Juan Soto and why he wants to be here. I mean, the fact of the matter is, with him here, the Mets have won 40 games already. Second in the major leagues, first in the National League, above the Dodgers. The same thing happened last year when he got traded to the Yankees. After the Yankees finished 82-80 the year before, Juan Soto comes in and changes the whole dynamic. Yeah, he hit more home runs and average and RBIs, but the impact of him being in the lineup, setting up Aaron Judge, helped them take the team to another level. And that's what is happening here. His presence in the lineup has changed things. Do we want to see him get more clutch hits? Absolutely. Has he, I don't want to say disappointed, underachieved, I think is the best word. I think underachieved from what we know that Juan Soto could be is the correct word to use for him. And there's a lot of emphasis on him, obviously, because of the money, because of, the rest of the offense outside of Lindor and Pete Alonso hitting at their best. Everyone else has pretty much struggled. The kids have struggled. As Armand posted, per sleeper, Mets Brett Beatty over the last 10 games, 5 for 31, a 161 batting average, 250 on base percentage, 226 slugging, 476 OPS, 4 RBIs, 3 walks, and 11 strikeouts. It's just going to be a carousel, and I think I posted this on X, the Spider-Man meme of them pointing at each other of who's going to be third baseman. Ronnie Mauricio, Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos. It's whoever's hot right now. That's who it is to me. But when Soto is struggling to bring in runners with scoring position, and then you have the bottom of the lineup, the way that is struggling, Beatty, Alvarez, Vientos was struggling, Acuna is struggling. So maybe you got to put in Luis Torrens more, and he came up with a big hit. Tyrone Taylor, he shouldn't be an everyday starter, but he has been put into that. And maybe they go in and get an outfielder, which we'll talk about later on in the show. That's why there's so much more emphasis on Juan Soto when he comes up with runners in scoring position and he doesn't come through. That's why there's so much emphasis on him. And as Carlos says, it's a transition year for him. He's not making excuses for Soto, but just going by experience with other big free agents before. And we've talked about this, right? Piazza, when he first came here. Lindor, we've seen it with Lindor. That's why this doesn't really bother me as much. I know there's a lot of fans freaking out, and they're going to freak out. And I'm not telling you how to handle being a Met fan, how to behave. I'm not going to get on you if you get angry. But this is no shock to me that he's struggled. Carlos Beltran struggled. Just happens here in Queens. You wish it didn't, but it does. Doesn't happen to everyone. Some worse than others, right? Like Jason Bay can never turn it around. Bobby Bonillo's meh, right? And then there's other ones who have great seasons when they come here. The most important fact of the matter here is that this Mets team leads in the division. They are taking advantage of the Phillies and the Braves losing. Where in the past, they didn't do that. In 2022, they didn't do that. That's why they lost the division. When the Braves are having monumental losses, and I don't know what happened to the Braves. I'm not following along. I just see it on X. When the Braves are blowing games in the ninth inning, and they've done it multiple times this week already, you got to start to wonder. You see the fans on X starting to talk about having to start trading pieces here and moving on from this season. The Phillies, they've been struggling. You have to take advantage. And even though the Mets are not hitting with runners in scoring position, and I'm not going to say that I'm okay with this type of play just because they're winning. I want them to hit with runners in scoring position. I'm starting to get concerned because it's June. When you have the bases loaded Friday night with no outs and you can't get a run in, that's a problem that needs to be fixed. They have to fix this issue. I don't know how it is. I don't know if firing Eric Chavez and Jeremy Barnes, I don't know if that's going to solve the problem. Because let's say they do that, like they did in 2021 when they got rid of Chili Davis. The offense did not turn things around after that. And then now who do you blame? Then they get rid of Hugh Quattlebaum and whoever else that was with him. So I just don't know how you fix this lineup without having these guys continue to go through the repetitions and trying to figure it out. And the Mets have enough leeway and room to do that. One, being in first place. Two, having a great pitching staff right now. And three, they lead the National League in wins right now. Not saying that it's going to be like that all season. But as of right now, the Mets are getting the job done. Duran Rivera mentioning Carlos Delgado didn't struggle. That's true. He's one of the players that came here and was really good. And happy to see Carlos Delgado back at Citi Field for the Alumni Classic. I think he is one of the more underrated players in Mets history. I thought he was really good, and he should probably be in the Hall of Fame, honestly. Not the Mets Hall of Fame, but definitely the National Baseball Hall of Fame. D checking in from his Sunday morning exercise. Shout out to you, my friend, for being in here. Jeff Cohen being in the show as well. Patrick St. Clair. We did mention Piazza, but I'm glad you mentioned Edwin Diaz. He struggled as well. 2019, Edwin Diaz pretty much cost the Mets an opportunity in the playoffs, blowing 9 or 10 games. Yeah, that was a big one. Glad he was able to turn around. Now that's affecting their what's his name, Devin Williams, out in the Bronx. But Soto will come around. G Money Stack says, I did see you and Jake Brown on the Mets Daily Show, and I've been hearing from some of the Mets fans basically wanting to send Francisco Alvarez to AAA. I doubt that him and Mark Vientos have options. I think Francisco Alvarez has options. He has not been sent down once. Any of the times that he's, had to be out of this roster, it's been because of injury. So I think he does have options. I'll have to double check on that. But thank you for checking out my appearance on Mets Daily with Jake Brown. If you haven't done so, go to his YouTube and check it out at Mets Daily. When it comes to sending him down to AAA, I'm right now okay with a 50-50 split with Luis Torrens. They're going to have Francisco Alvarez battle through this. But I think Luis Torrens should be getting more playing time just to keep him fresh. I mean, you saw him get the big hit on Saturday. And it's important to get him fresh repetition. I think he's about to go on paternity leave, if I am correct, when it comes to Francisco Alvarez, and they have Hayden Singer as the taxi man, the 26th man on the roster currently, whenever that happens. Now, I talked about, what Rosie K was mentioning earlier, and he said, I have to say that the loss to LA was brutal. Makes me worry about their ability to hang with teams like that. Well, the Mets have a really good record with teams over 500. One, right? I mentioned 40 games they've won, the most in the National League. And they're leading the division right now with the Phillies struggling, with the Braves in some sort of free fall, which I still hard for me to buy into yet, right? Because we saw them come back in 2022. I understand the concern. I get it. I'm always cautiously optimistic when it comes to this team. But if the pitching stays the course, which they have through now what is June, and they have some help coming along the way, they should be fine. But I'm glad you brought that up, because how do the Mets close the gap on the Los Angeles Dodgers? It's close. It really is. There were a lot of close games in the 7-game series from Citi Field and Dodger Stadium. Let's look at the scores. The Mets went 4-3. They won the season series against the Dodgers, which means if they ever ended up in a tie, probably would get home field advantage in the postseason. 4-3 against the Dodgers. And really, they could have won 7-0. And I'm not saying that to just be a Mets homer. They had 2 games where they blown 2 terrible plays on defense, which they better tighten up. Because when you play the Dodgers and you give them extra outs, they come up with big hits. They will make you pay for that. So tighten that up big time. The play with Nimmo in left field where he couldn't find the ball to end the game in extras. The Brett Beatty throwing home and double pumping. Blowing the game at home after, tying it up in the 9th. These are games the Mets could have won. And because they're not hitting with runners in scoring position, because the bullpen's a little taxed, and because the defense has not been good this season. I'm surprised at how bad the defense has been this season for the New York Mets. The infield specifically has been rough. I thought we'd be talking more about Juan Soto in right field. It's been the defense in the infield that has struggled. Pete Alonso, Brett Beatty, Pete Alonso just throwing to first. Brett Beatty throwing home. Both of them throwing home. Anytime I see these guys throw home, I don't care who it is that's in the infield. I'm nervous. I am absolutely nervous. You can't make careless errors like the one Nimmo did in extra innings in Dodger Stadium. Like I mentioned, the Brett Beatty double pump. Pass balls by Francisco Alvarez. I think the pass balls by Francisco Alvarez worries me more than him not hitting right now, because those pass balls have led to runs, costly runs. And you can't do that against this Dodgers team. You can't give them opportunities because they have a great lineup 1 through 9. It's kind of what you wish the Mets would have. 1 through 9 on the Dodgers lineup is scary. Look, Tommy Edman beat the crap out of us in the National League Championship Series. It always worries me when he comes up to bat. Andy Paez has been really good. You already know Shohei Ohtani. You already know Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith. Top 4 guys. Those guys are always going to be good. Now you got to throw in Kike Hernandez, who gets big hits. You throw in Max Muncy, who can get a big hit against him. He had the tying home run in the 9th for Oscar Brazaban. The 1 through 9 for this Dodgers team is so lethal. You better make sure that you do not have any of these type of errors. And if you go to what failed this team in the playoffs last season in the NLCS against the Dodgers, obviously the starting pitchers were out of gas, right? Sean Manaea was spent by the time we got to Game 6. And the bullpen was not good. The bullpen was not good. When Edwin Diaz has to come in the 6th inning because the rest of the bullpen can't do their job, that is a problem. And we haven't had to see that this season. He was getting ready to come into the 8th, but then the Mets scored some runs and didn't need him. You need more than Edwin Diaz and Ryan Stanek, who were the 2 guys that were getting the big outs in the NLCS. You need more than them to be a part of this. The walks hurt. Dodgers capitalize, right? Careless errors. Dodgers capitalize. You can now, and you know, I forgot. Even Michael Conforto, who had the big hit in the Mets loss, he can get a big hit every so often. So the Mets have to stop with the careless errors, the walks as well, because the Dodgers are going to make you pay. And on top of that, the Mets need their lineup to step up, especially the bottom of it. Need to be more consistent and complete. It's been bad for too long. And how do the Mets fix this lineup? Like I mentioned earlier, that's not working, even with these kids. We're going to get into that shortly. But I got to get into the chat because the chat has been lighting it up pretty much throughout this entire show. So let's get to some of the comments here from the chat. Marcos Figueroa, when it comes to the how to fix this lineup, give Mike Piazza a blank check to become hitting coach. He's been married long enough that his wife probably wants him out of the house. Hey, I would take Mike Piazza. I know some people would take even Carlos Beltran as the hitting coach. I know a lot of fans are just plain and tired of Eric Chavez. And Carlos Ramos, and speaking about hitting with runners in scoring position and situational hitting, I could make a case that Luis Torrens is one of our best situational hitters. So why isn't he playing more? I don't understand it, to be honest. Yeah, look, and I mentioned this probably last week's show. A lot of them have cooled off. But there was a time during the Mets homestand, and before that, the previous homestand, that the top 3 hitters on this roster, and this was when Pete and Lindor were struggling. Luis Torrens, Brett Baty, who's struggling now again, and Tyrone Taylor. Those can't be the best hitters in the lineup. But when Torrens is playing well, you gotta put him in there. You gotta get him in the lineup. Carlos Ortiz saying can't give up on Alvy yet. That is true. He's only 23 years old. But maybe right now, this is too much for him, being 23 years old. Maybe he needs a little bit of rest. Shout out to George in the chat for being a part of the show. And as Armand saying, Alvy does have options, so that's good. G-Money Stag saying Edwin Diaz with 14 saves, and I feel like when he struggles, it is more like a confidence thing and being overworked and overwhelmed. A lot of it is being overworked. I mentioned it on the last podcast with Mike Silva that Edwin Diaz is at his best within the first 3 pitches, obviously. You can tell if he's going to be on or not. But when he's in the post-game presser and you hear the confidence in his voice and you see the confidence radiating from him, he's on his game. Jeff Cohen. I'm glad Jeff Cohen brought this up because I forgot. This is a thing too with the Dodgers. They're not even at 100% yet. Blake Snell's out. Tyler Glasnow's out. Roki Sasaki's out. Basically the whole pitching staff. Tony Gonsolin just went out, I think. First off, you got to capitalize, right? We talked about the Mets capitalizing on things like this. Capitalizing on the Phillies struggles, on the Braves struggles. When the Dodgers don't have their best out there, you got to get these wins. And that's why we're talking about this, because in October, the Mets are going to have to fix these issues that they have. And one of them, as Rosie K stated, is getting hits with runners in scoring position. Got to get that fixed. We may have to worry, D. As D says, Dodgers will get pitching back healthy, then we worry. This could be a big problem. YouTube, it says YouTube user, so I don't know if his name is on here, but I wish they would keep the infielders in the same positions. Beatty broke the wrong way last night. Just leave him in, and Mauricio now in one spot for reps. Yeah, I think someone posted on X, like, is the infield practicing before games? Got to get that infield defense to be a whole lot better. They're better than this. So I don't know why they're struggling this much. I'm glad Patrick St. Clair said this because it's exactly kind of how I feel. And I'm a very cautious optimistic. I like what he says here. We know we're not above the Dodgers, and we respect the Braves and Phillies despite their struggles. Staying humble, staying hopeful is good karma. And I said as well, just before I went into the chat here, how do the Mets fix this lineup when it's not working? When they're not hitting with runners in scoring position, when the kids aren't getting big hits, how do we fix this? Well, we're going to get into a couple of trade rumors. Well, one trade rumor that came out from Jeff Passan on ESPN, who originally was having Zach Gallen coming to the Mets at the trade deadline, which I didn't see coming. But instead of going with Zach Gallen, he was talking about Cedric Mullins coming here, the center fielder from the Baltimore Orioles. Do you agree with Jeff, chat? Do you think he's the guy that will help this Mets lineup out? And which of these two would you prefer? Why? Would you prefer pitching and getting Gallen? Would you prefer getting a Cedric Mullins? Now, Mullins, 2025 season so far, batting .232, has 10 homers, 31 RBIs, and 8 stolen bases. Most importantly, with runners in scoring position, 273, 3 homers, 24 RBIs. Zach Gallen last season. Zach Gallen this season, 2025, he's 4-7, 5.13 ERA, 70 strikeouts in 73 and 2/3 innings pitched. So, I know he's struggling, but maybe he needs to get out of Arizona. Armand saying, pass and teasing me with Gallen, who would be a rental since he is an unrestricted free agent after the season. And if that's so, like, how much would the Mets have to give up? You would assume not much, but sometimes when teams are in the playoff hunt, they end up giving up a lot more. And I don't think that David Stearns would do that. D's saying that he thinks the answer comes internally at some point by pitching or by bat. I'm going to save that comment because I agree. And I'll get to that shortly. Matt E.B. Ibanez from Till Mets Do His Part. Make sure you check them out Wednesday. And I heard that the man, John Sapanero, is coming back this week. So shout out to the crew on Till Mets Do A Part. Saying the question I believe that the front office needs to ask come deadline is a simple one. What do we need in order to push us over the top in a fight to get to the World Series? Is it a starter, a bat, bullpen arm? I totally agree. That's something that I'm pretty sure they're working on now. They keep bringing in bodies for the bullpen. And we'll see what they decide to do. Now, Cedric Mullins is a significant upgrade at center field over Tyrone Taylor, Jeff McNeil, Jose Siri, although maybe Jose Siri is a better defensive center fielder. But Cedric Mullins would be a significant upgrade out there, would probably help out the lineup. Now, Jolly Olive thinks, and this goes in line with what Matt's saying, that maybe the Mets need a relief pitcher. Most importantly, a left-handed relief pitcher. Now, I like what I've seen from Jose Castillo. We know that Brooks Raley is set to return at some point this summer, but you can never have enough lefties in the bullpen. I always like to have at least 2. Excuse me. And we got that this offseason with AJ Minter and Danny Young. Wow, I'm losing my voice. So we got those 2 guys, and within a week span, both of them got hurt and were out for the season. So if we can get a nice lefty to go along with Jose Castillo, who's been pretty good. I don't even think he's given up a run. He's been pretty good. We know what Brooks Raley can bring to the team coming off of Tommy John surgery. He's been solid the 2 years that the time that he's played for the Mets, at least. Now, the conversations I had with Jake about the trade deadline on Mets Daily, he thinks the Mets are all in and are going to get a big-time starting pitcher. Now, is Zach Gallen the big-time starting pitcher? I don't know. I am more in line with, what was it? Was it D's comment? Yeah, with D. I don't think a big move is on the way. Starting pitching right now is kind of deep. I just don't think that they move on. And when I say deep, I'm talking about they also have, Nolan McLean pitching very well in AAA. They have they have Brandon Sprout, who had a nice bounce back Blade Tidwell. Like, they have these guys in the minors, these kids. I don't know if they're willing to trade them. And unless you're giving me Tariq Skubal, who's not going to be traded, or Paul Skeens, I mean, you got to keep building from within when it comes to these arms. You build the pitching from within. You can trade for a bat or a relief pitcher, which I'm pretty sure that that's the mode that David Stearns is going to be on. But is there some name that was not mentioned that you're interested in? Is there a name that has not been mentioned out of the Cedric Mullinses, Zach Gallen, or is there someone that you think that the Mets can get? Let's go into the chat and see what you guys have been posting about this and the trade deadline. G Money Stacks saying it's 162 games, and I got to say that the one thing I worry about is the injuries. That's always the biggest concern with this team. And thankfully, they've had enough depth right now to overcome. They have. I mean, their pitching staff is the best in the league. No Sean Manaea. Now, I don't know what Frankie Montas is going to give to this team. But without Sean Manaea, this team has been pretty good. And that's with a guy who has transitioned from being a reliever to a starter. And a guy who was pretty much the worst in the league in Griffin Canning is now probably one of the best in the league. Marcos Figueroa is saying he'd rather have Mullins. He's a free agent at the end of the year, and the Mets have the pitching depth to get it done. Think McGill and Tidwell in a trade. That would be an interesting trade. F. Torres saying, I disagree with whoever said the Dodgers are better. I believe the Mets are eye to eye with them. I would say that they are significantly better right now. I mean, you got to give the advantage to the team that won the World Series, and until they are beaten in the playoffs, they are still the team to beat. Eye to eye is pretty close, but what's going to put the Mets over the hump? And I hope that what we talked about earlier is what gets them going. Paul DeWise saying, I want us to get, I think it's Jared Duran, team control into 2029. He hits for average and has power and can play all three positions in the outfield. I know that I think it was John Heyman who mentioned that about a Duran and possibly being a trade partner with the Mets and the Red Sox trading together. If he has control, you're giving up a lot for him. That's for sure. Jeff Cohen, I always need bullpen arms since the starters don't go deep and the pen is being taxed. Absolutely. You keep replacing these relievers because that's the cycle that David Stearns gets into here. Armand saying, I think the Mets go for bullpen and bat at deadline. The rotation will be dealt with internally, which I agree with. Like I said, the depth from the kids coming up with Nolan McLean getting ready soon. Sproat pitching a little bit better now. You got Blade Tidwell. The options are there when it comes to the rotation. And unless you're getting a absolute stud starting pitcher, I don't think I make any deals for a starting pitcher. Now, Paul DeWise saying willing to give up Vientos and 2 lower level prospects. If this is in terms of Jared Duran, I think you got to give up a whole lot more than Mark Vientos, who's injured and has not been playing well, and 2 lower level prospects. I don't think that gets it done. I just don't. D saying Mauricio is who we needed to provide power at the bottom of the order. I also think McLean will be up soon and he will dominate. That said, center field could lack pop with a Taylor series split. Maybe it is Ronnie Mauricio. Maybe it is Ronnie Mauricio that powers this offense. He got off to a tough start. I think he went 0 for 11. Last, he got 3 hits, and they have been, how do you say, they've been extra base hits, and including that bomb of a home run he hit on Saturday. Carlos Ramos, whoever the Mets acquire, if it's a big name, will need not be a rental. Cohen has to sit down with Pete again this offseason and give him the bag, so he's not going to want a rental to have to extend, in his opinion. Ken Thal in the chat saying, the way y'all talk about Mullins is like he's Willie Mays. He's an average player. Well, that's why I'm asking. I don't know too much about Cedric Mullins, but that's who's been talked about. The 3 players that I've heard have been Cedric Mullins, Duran, and Zach Gallen. Maybe Cedric Mullins is not the answer. I don't know. I'm just filling in the gaps with what I've heard. The stats are there, and you just do what you want with them. I mean, if you don't like Cedric Mullins, that's fine. If you want him here, fine as well. But we'll see what happens. Armand saying maybe the Mets trade for Yandy Diaz to DH and even play third, also to be the backup first baseman. I think that the Mets were talking about Yandy Diaz in the offseason when Pete wasn't around. But with signing Pete, that was, I guess, unnecessary, but maybe he is a backup type player. Marcos Figueroa is saying, I can see Holmes in the pen in the playoffs due to the number of innings he'll pitch in the regular season. Think Peterson last year. Yeah. Clay Holmes is way over his innings limit now. I don't know how that affects him into the future, but I do see a scenario where he goes into the bullpen. Maybe if it's one of these kids come up, or what, but I don't know if he gets a start in the postseason. I think he probably would be coming out of the bullpen, and that's a great setup for Edwin Diaz. And, even David Peterson, I know he's an important part of this rotation, but the fact that he can throw important innings out of the bullpen is going to help this team come October. F. Torres saying the Dodgers are soft, talented, but also soft. Always have been. That's why they didn't win anything until last year. I don't know if you count, 2020. A lot of people don't. But the Dodgers, even with the big lineup, they've just suffered so many injuries to their pitching staffs. They haven't been able to put it together for full until last season. So I don't see where F. Torres is wrong there. Patrick saying, for some reason, I feel like Lucas Urchage will be available for cheap this deadline. That's a possible option that I would look into for the bullpen. So that's a great name to bring up here. Armand saying Red Sox going to look for pitching for Duran. Most likely Sprout or Tong would have to be a part of the package. Now, would you do that? If one or both of those 2 pitchers were a part of the package to get Duran, would you get him? Even McLean, Ibby is saying. And you could throw in Jesus Baez plus more. Is Duran that good that he's worth those players? Carlos Ortiz saying Jim from Ballpark Nation suggested Aroldis Chapman. Don't want him. Yeah, I don't want him. And I think he got hurt to close out the game at Yankee Stadium the other night. So Carlos Ramos saying, I'm not interested in giving the farm to Duran. Why? Drew Gilbert is in our system already. No need to give up so much for Duran. If you're ready for Drew Gilbert time, then yeah. I don't think that they make a move for Duran. I don't know if they're going to trade any of their prospects again until I see it. I think it's going to be a quiet trade deadline where they just move bullpen arms. Jeff Cohen saying don't give up pitching, which I agree. Grow the pitching from within. Jerron Rivera making a great point. Mets need lefties to nullify Ohtani, Freeman, Muncy, Harper, Schwarber. And we saw David Peterson strike out Ohtani 5 times. So, yeah, definitely going to need that. Jeff Cohen mentioning Kenley Jansen as a setup for Diaz. He will be available. But does he want to be a setup man? And I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Kenley Jansen. George saying, Ant, just want to say how much I learned from you and the people on the live chat. So cool to hear all the different opinions and perspectives. Met fans are the best, truly amazing. Appreciate that. Appreciate you being a part of the chat. I'm even learning things through this show. So it's great to have this chat and being able to talk with each and every one of you. So that's a little bit of into this little trade deadline and the trade rumors we've been hearing. I'm pretty sure we're going to hear a lot more as we get closer and closer. The Mets will be buyers, right? Because they are in the position to buy. I just don't know how much they do because we haven't really seen a big move made in a long time at the trade deadline from the Mets. But also just seeing from how David Stearns works, I don't, he does these minor moves, right? He brought in Stanek in the middle of the season. He brought in Maton. Shored up bits and pieces, kind of patchwork to get the team going. And it worked. Got him to within 2 games of the World Series. So I have confidence in him that he'll get the right pieces in here. Now, some of the news and happenings surrounding this team before we wrap up. Ronnie Mauricio being up with the team with Vientos on the 10-day IL with the right hamstring strain. You saw the Mauricio home run. Absolute bomb. He can play throughout the entire infield right now. Second, short, third base. I always thought he was going to be the second baseman, but man, seeing his arm at third base, wow. He's got a rocket for an arm. And we're just going to have that third base carousel from Mauricio, Beatty, and Vientos. He looked smooth at second base to me when he was playing in 2023 with Francisco Lindor. Paul Blackburn also made his debut. 5 innings pitched, 3 hits, no runs, a walk, and 3 strikeouts against the Dodgers. The Mets ended up winning that game. You got Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas with their rehab starts. Manaea for Brooklyn versus the Wilmington Blue Rocks on Friday had an inning and 2/3 an inning and 2/3 innings. Did I do that right? I think 1 and 2/3 innings pitched, 4 runs, 3 earned runs, 2 strikeouts, no walks through 36 pitches. So he got through his pitches fine. We'll need a few more starts to get him to 90 pitches. And this isn't about the results of how many runs he gives up or hits. It's him being able to be healthy to get into the next start. Same thing with Frankie Montas, who's going to need a few more starts. Only threw 61 pitches in his last outing. He's given up 9 runs total in 6 1/3 innings pitched. We will see if he is able to be an important part of this rotation. I still am a little bit skeptical on that. The Mets also released 2 new original series on YouTube. If you remember the Soto Pursuit documentary, now they have Inside the Diamond. Gives you unprecedented access to your favorite players. And On the Road, which gives you all access pass to their travel for road games. Now, this next topic I really wanted to get into, and that is the Alumni Classic. The Old Timers Day has now been renamed to the Alumni Classic, which I like a lot better. It'll be Saturday, September 13th, before the 4:10 game versus the Texas Rangers. Now, can Jacob deGrom play in this for the Mets? We already know that Matt Harvey and Noah Syndergaard are going to be a part of it. So it's going to be Team Shea Stadium, the 2000-2006 alumni versus Team City Field, 2015 National League champions, and then some. I have the graphic of the roster here, as you can see. The ambassadors at the bottom, Darryl Strawberry and Mookie Wilson. It's covered up there, but let me clear that so that we can see the whole thing. There we go. There we go. Darryl Strawberry, Mookie Wilson are the ambassadors. The managers for Shea Stadium, Willie Randolph, Bobby Valentine, and then the managers for Citi Field, Terry Collins and Jerry Manuel. Now for pitchers, Shea Stadium has John Franco, Mike Hampton, Al Leiter, Pedro Martinez, Rick Reed, and Billy Wagner. For Team Citi Field, Bartolo Colon, R.A. Dickey, Matt Harvey, John Neese, Johan Santana, and Noah Syndergaard. The catchers, Paul Aduca and Mike Piazza. And then for Team City, Kevin Plawecki and Josh Tolley. In the infield, for Team Shea Stadium, Edgardo Alfonso, Carlos Delgado, welcome back. My guy, one of my favorite Mets of all time, Ray Ordonez. Then you got Jose Reyes, Robin Ventura, and Todd Zeal going up against Asdrubal Cabrera, Ike Davis, Kelly Johnson, a Met fan favorite, Josh Satin, and everyone loves him, Ruben Tejada. In the outfield, Benny Agbayani, Carlos Beltran, Andy Chavez, and Cliff Floyd round out Shea Stadium, whereas Mike Baxter, Curtis Granderson, Juan Lagares, and Kirk Neuenhuis round out the team for Citi Field. Is anyone going to be going to this game for the Alumni Classic? I know I'm going to try to get my tickets. I have the tickets for the David Wright retirement. So we will see. This game, Matt Ibiabin is saying some of the names along with Jerry Manuel have been through the ringer as fans. yeah, pretty much. When I saw Jerry Manuel, I was like, man, there was nobody else, but you want Mickey Callaway in there? I definitely don't want Mickey Callaway being a part of that. Also saying, bring back Matt Den Decker. Jeff Cohen has these tickets for the Alumni Classic. I think I'm going to have to get mine. Going to have to get mine real soon. But man, that's going to be a fun event here. The Mets doing this. Always like when they do events like this. The Cohens have brought a lot of great things to this Met organization. Putting in the history of this team has been one of them. And it's great to see not only the David Wright retirement, the number being retired, going into the Hall of Fame, and now you got the Alumni Classic this year. Great things for this New York Mets organization and their fan base. A couple of minor signings. David Stearns doing his thing to send some guys to the pitching lab. Justin Garza was acquired from the Giants for cash. He's a career 2-3 with a 5.74 ERA. He's got 46 strikeouts in 47 innings pitched. And then Julian Mayweather signed to a minor league contract 2025, was 0-1 with a 5.79 ERA and has 15 strikeouts in 18 2/3 innings pitched. And his career, 6-7, 4.72 ERA, 177 strikeouts in 158 1/3 innings pitched. Now, Anthony DiComo of MLB.com saying the velocity is the common thread with these two throwing between 98 to 99 miles per hour, and Mayweather topping at 102 miles per hour. Crazy to be seen. Dumpster Dave is back, as Matt Ibiapin is saying. Oh, man. It's been a great show. I appreciate every one of you for tuning in with me. Try to have a guest next week on here because, honestly, it's a little bit harder. And I don't know if Ibby feels this way because he's been doing solo shows for the last couple of weeks to go through all your topics. as well as trying to be involved with the chat. A little tougher when you don't have a guest and going back and forth. But 100 we had almost 122 people in the room. I appreciate every single one of you for being here in the chat. I can't name you all, but you know who you are. You're in here with me. Appreciate it. Make sure you are subscribed. If you like this video, if you like the content, please consider subscribing to the channel. We are, I think it is 19 away probably right now from 1,000 subscribers. A big moment for me to get to 1,000 subscribers in this long haul that we've been doing since we started YouTube, which was, I think, last year. So, shout out to every single, one of you who have subscribed and is a part of this show every Sunday at 10 a.m. We'll try to do some more shows, but it's just been a little bit hard with a little Subway to Shea. Got to tend to the little guy. So, Sundays at 10 have been the best for me, and it seems to be the best for everybody else. You'll be able to listen on Apple Podcasts and Spotify starting tomorrow. But like I always say, when you want to be a part of the chat, if you want to be a part of the chat, you got to be on YouTube or X as well. Is a part. I think the comments come through there. If you want a couple of short clips I put out there as well, you can check that out on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. Got a lot of stuff going on there as well. And you can follow me at Aunt Rivera 86. It's been fun, but it's time to wrap up. Time to enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Appreciate you all for being here. And as I always like to end the show, this is Anthony Rivera, Subway to Shea Podcast. Always remember, let's go Mets.